Thanks, Russ. Yeah, like Russ said, I'm a regional manager for precision planting. I cover the eastern side of Iowa, but I've been with them for about 10, going on 11 years here this summer. And really, my area of expertise is really working with growers and our dealer network and educating, understanding the planter paths and how to make adjustments. And so, yeah, really just helping guys like you go out and make sure you have the best pass and the best opportunity as you go to the field in the spring. And so I kind of labeled this, managing to that higher level and making sure that we're not missing anything. Because as we think about it, and we'll hear later today from Dr. Hart, this is a year where we've got to make sure we get everything right. We can afford mistakes in $7 corn years. Can't afford mistakes in $4 corn years, right? We've got to do everything correct. So as we go through today, my goals for you guys are to maximize that planting window. As you guys go to the field, we know that every year you have maybe 4 or 5 perfect days to plant corn, and we want to get as many acres in those days as we can. So minimizing breakdowns, maximizing that uptime. Want to put the seed in the best environment. Want to make sure we're making good management decisions as we go to the field. And in the end, increase that profitability as much as we can going into years like this. So as you guys think about getting ready to get in your cabs, and you got these great big windows out front, we'll think about flying. Anybody go down to Florida or down to the beaches this year, right? Got on the airplane, and we got the pilots up there. They got little bitty windows on these big airplanes driving us around the world. But they actually are trusting in something else. They're trusting in their instruments and gauges, correct? So as they're flying you guys across the world, they're getting ready to land these big planes with hundreds of people on them. The window really doesn't matter, right? It's the data and the information that their gauges and their dials are all helping them make the right decisions to get that plane on the ground safely. So as we go to the field, I'll actually argue that you guys have the same scenario. When you look out the back window of your tractor as you're going across the field, can you tell me you're doing the best job that you can? Can you tell me that there's one seed coming off the plate every time? Can you tell me that you closed the trench properly as you went across the field? We can't, right? There may be 2 arguments. You may be able to tell me on a dusty day that the vac fan's running, and you may be able to tell me that the road cleaners are working somewhat, right? But other than that, we can't truly be confident in what that planter's doing sitting in the tractor seat. And we can even say, well, them days when we got that nice west wind and it's dry and we're planting east, we can't see anything at all, right? So my question to you to start with is, do you have visibility in the cab? Do you have the right dials and the right tools telling you what's coming out of that planter? That you're confident going forward, understanding that I'm going to have that picket fence stand. I put everything in the right spot. I put it at the right depth. I close the furrow all right from that planter pass in my cab. Make sure you guys are setting that up. Make sure you trust the instruments and tools you have in your cab to do that. This is our 2020 monitoring system. We'll talk about it a little bit later here. But understand that you make sure that pass is good. The next thing that I want you guys to think of as you guys are going to the field here, and especially as we get planters out of the sheds, especially with this warm spell, right? Get them out now. There's not too many years in February we can get them out of the shed and not have to worry about getting salt and sand and snow and everything else all over them. Maintenance. Making sure that our planters are mechanically sound as we go to the field is crucial. I've said it a number of years as I've been here. It's amazing to me how a $10 part can bring hundreds of thousands of dollars in technology to its knees very quickly. We don't fix one little piece on a planter because it'll last another year, and our technology is not maximized. It's not utilized properly when it comes to that. So I will tell a guy when we're looking at planters, don't buy this, fix it first. So as we go through there, we're going to touch on some of these a little bit more, but I'm going to go through these kind of quick. We got parallel arms, right? Parallel arms are ready to make our planter row units nice and tight. They keep us Keep our planter from vibrating and shaking that shank when they're loose and causing seed spacing issues. Make sure our disc openers and gauge wheels are all settled into each other. Make sure we have no gaps letting dry dirt fall in or wet dirt get in there and mud up the trench. Make sure our disc openers are shimmed properly. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Make sure our seed tube guards are up to snuff. Any Keaton seed firmers or seed firming systems you got out there. Gauge wheel arms. Any mustaches or depth stops. So as we think about those things, again, we went through them quick, but those are the $10 parts that bring your planter down, that cause you not to be planting when it's nice out, when we break one because we didn't do the maintenance on it before preseason. And we can tie all those back to the issues you guys see in your fields when we go out scouting after the crop has come up, or maybe at the end of the year when the ears are out there and we're going out to look at them. So when we think about ear potential and we think about some maintenance items, when we look at spacing, spacing is the delivery of that seed. Okay, so singulation is what our meter is doing. Spacing is really everything else. It's the delivery of that seed. So if you've got a ground drive system, you've got a hydraulic drive system that has hex shaft, chains, bearings, all that. That delivery, how those systems are working, is what causes the spacing issues on the ground. The roughness of ride as that planter bounces across the ground causes spacing issues. Making sure all the things on that planter row unit are tight so that we're keeping that thing from bouncing and shaking. So when we think about ear potential, we think about what do these errors cost us on the farm. So a spacing error, we lose about 1/10 of an ear for a minor misplaced seed. A minor misplaced seed on a 30-inch row for us is anything within 4 inches of another seed. It means they will cannibalize each other. They're having to fight over and share the water resources and the nutrient resources in that area. When we look at a major misplaced seed, we lose about 2/10 of an ear. And those are seeds that are within 2.5 inches of each other. Again, they're cannibalizing over that same stuff. Not enough nutrients and water in that area. And so as you think about those spacing errors, as we cause issues and we cause that bounce and that drag of seed, or we don't have seeds in the right spot, one of the big culprits now is high-speed planting. As I think about seed spacing, a guy that tries to plant high speed without the high speed equipment on his planter has errors, has spacing errors. The curve in our seed tube is made for 3.5 miles an hour. It offsets the velocity of seeding at 3.5 miles an hour. So when we've been planting 4.5 to 5 over the last decade, we just deemed the spacing errors that were caused during that okay, acceptable. Because at 3.5 mile an hour, we're offsetting that velocity with the curve in the seed tube. So as we think about high-speed planting, we've got to offset that by having these belts in our systems to offset the speed as we move forward. So making sure that's one major spacing thing that comes into play. As we look at emergence, we look at when those plants are coming up, are they all coming up together, right? That's our emergence. Emergence can really be looked at and linked back to management decisions. And we're going to talk through a few of these again here today, just like we are going to be talking about spacing error stuff. But our emergence comes back to management decisions. Did I replace some of the wear parts that should have been replaced, or did I leave them? Did I plant too wet? Did I plant too dry? Those type of things are what causes us maintenance or emergence issues. When we look at emergence issues, they hit a lot harder than what spacing errors do. So if I get a plant and I'm out scouting and I've got all V3 except for a couple plants, and I start to look, if I've got a V2 plant in that field of V3 corn, I've now lost half an ear on average of those. Every one of them is a half an ear. If I actually go out and I find one that is 2 leaf collars behind, so if I'm in that field of a V3 when I'm scouting, and I've got some that's just at the first leaf, or I've got some that are just spiking up, I've lost a whole ear there. There's nothing left of that ear because it's behind. It's going to continuously fall behind. It's never going to catch up. It's not going to get the sunlight interception that it needs to produce grain and fill it. And so we're always going to have a loss of an ear on that one. And so what do those cost us? As we think about the cost associated with these, a lot of times this is where we don't break it down, right? We don't break down what these errors in our fields cost us. But we also need to remember, as I think about these errors, I've put 100% of every input into each one of these, right? I put the same seed cost into every seed I put in the ground, put the same fertility plan on every seed I put in the ground. Am I happy to get 90%, 80% of an ear, 50% of an ear, or no ear out of some of them? Shouldn't be, right? I want to get a full ear out of every seed I put in the ground. So what's it cost us when I have one leaf color behind? So we would take 1/1000th of an acre on 30-inch rows. That's 17 feet 5 inches. We know, though, through our years of research, that if I lose one ear in that run, that'd be 1,000 ears per acre. I lose 7 bushel. We're going to say a loss potential of $5. I'm from Southern Iowa. I won't want to take my shoes off, so I'm using it for easy math. I know it's a little high where our markets are today. So that equates to $17.50 an acre. That's on one row, right? We did one row of a yield check. We figure the average planter per row plants 100 acres a row. That's probably honestly a little low in our area. So if I think about that, one issue, one plant in my 17 feet 5 inches of a yield check, for each row I have one of those on, that's $1,750. Is it okay to fix maintenance items? Yeah, we can fix them pretty quick and we can pay for them pretty quick. Now we can make it hurt a little worse when we think about a whole ear gone. When we think about that plant that's 2 leaf collars behind. It's $3,500 a row per year. So making the correct decisions, making the maintenance decisions is crucial. I'm going to go through some of these today, but I will throw this out there. If you guys go to precisionplanting.com/maintenance, we have a maintenance guide out there. I really like this maintenance guide because of how they broke it down. They do an in-shop version, and then they have the day one in-field version, all in the same maintenance book. So you guys go through all the things in the shop, what the maintenance is on them, and then we go out day one. What are we looking for? What do we need to see? What do we need to change or adapt as we go through there? So I really like this maintenance guide. If you don't find it on the line, find a local precision dealer that can get you set up. One of the ones that I'm going to kind of go through some of the ones that are really costing guys the most here. That's what we're going to talk about today. First one is, have you calibrated your depth on your planter? Anybody ever heard of this? Couple guys? Have you done it? No? Uh-oh, he's got a C- grade for today, so we'll give him grace. When you calibrated it, did you find differences? 5 rows were different. So when we think, what he's saying is, when he calibrates this, we put these blocks underneath there, we see where's my true 2 inches of depth. He's got 5 rows out of 24. 5 rows out of 24 that are planting a different depth than he wants to. Different depth could mean the difference between being in dry dirt or in the moisture line, right? So as we do these, I challenge you guys to get your planters out here. There's a number of ways you can do it. There's even some dealers that have built and they have tools being manufactured to do this. You can take a block of wood up on the bottom of a jack and make a 2-inch lip on it. Number of ways you can do it. But basically just go in and take that calibration, right? You're going to go through, I always think this is the pointer, but it's not. You're going to go through and create like a 2-inch step, right? So you're going to lift those gauge wheels up 2 inches, set your T-handles to 2 inches, and just see, are my disc openers touching the base? If it's cement you're setting it on, is the tip of the disc opener sitting on the cement? If it's not, and it's up in the air hovering like this, I'm planting shallow with that row. If the disc openers are holding all the weight of the row unit and my gauge wheels can spin, that means that row's planting deep. and I'm going to have that difference. When we think about it, again, this all really comes back to accurate depth. We want to make sure we know that when we set that planter's T-handle, that we know where 2 inches is. So here's your tip. You're going to take a paint marker and you're going to take a little paint marker by each one. You may have some rows that are at 4 and 4. You may have some rows that are 4 and 5. You may have some rows that are 5 and 5 to be 2 inches. But that's where your 2 inches. You're going to take that paint marker and mark the shank for that year. And then that way, you know, as you adjust from that going through the season, where your 2 inch line is. Yeah. So that shouldn't be much of that's going to be where you're carrying your weight of your load on your tires and everything. This is strictly setting how deep are our disc openers compared to the bottom of our gauge wheels. So, yep. So with that, I've seen 3/4 of an inch difference on new planters out of the factory. I've seen 1 inch plus. These are horror stories, right? These are the worst case scenarios. 1 inch plus on used planters. So make sure you guys are checking these things because we want to make sure we're planting at the correct depth. One of those things that causes depth changes from year to year with this is disc opener wear, right? Let's think about the simplest thing here. I'm willing to let a disc opener wear a 1/2 inch. If I take the T-handle from the OEM book that says that 4 or 5 is 2 inches of depth, and I'm allowing a 1/2 inch of disc opener wear, did I adjust that on my T-handle? I didn't, right? So a very simple, hey, wow, that connects the dots for me, right? Like I should adjust for that if I'm already allowing a 1/2 inch. So we know 1/2 inch of disc opener wear is when we need to replace them. Everybody's a good farmer. I never have a dealer call me and say, you'll never guess the record for this year on disc openers. I just took a John Deere disc opener off and it was 13.5 inches. I got called yesterday on this, guys. On the way here, I was left Dubuque talking to a dealer and he says, I got a new record, 13.5 inches on a John Deere disc opener. They were wore out at 14.5, right? So make sure you guys are doing that. If you're really good, I guess you can market them, right? So if you're a white planter with a 9,000, you got 16 inch new. When you wear yours out, you can sell them to the neighbor with the John Deere planter. You can start over with them, right? The other key thing when we think about disc openers, guys, is we want to make sure that we're shimming them correctly. You want to make sure that you're getting that right contact point. This is what's creating that true V cut at the bottom in the soil for us. So if I need to know my blade thickness, you got aftermarket blades. Typically, they're a little heavier blade, a little thicker of a blade. You don't need as much contact. By the thinner blades, maybe at an OEM or something, they're going to be need more contact, right? They're going to need to make sure those contact a little bit more. So as we think about those, get those things shimmed up right. But not only that, when we talk about disc openers, this is one of the things that's really, really eye-opening for us these last couple of years, is disc openers are not all made equal. Plain and simple, they're not made the same. So the first test I want you guys to do when you're get new disc openers and you're installing them, lay them on a flat surface. Make sure they're flat. Make sure they're not warped. These blades go through heat treating processes, most of them. They can warp during that, as well as they can warp during transportation. I mean, you think about most of them, they come in a big wooden crate, right? And they're piled on top of each other, bouncing around in the back of a semi as it's going down the highway. They can bend and move and stuff in there and cause issues. So make sure they're flat. The next two things I want you guys to look at is, are my disc openers true? Now, when I say are they true, I'll play the video here in a second, but one is the hub riveted on the center of that blade, or did they not get it centered when they riveted on there? Or two, is the bearing centered in my hub correctly? So what the two things you'll see, and you'll watch this blade do both of those, is one, as it's spinning, it will go to and from that gauge that's sitting right next to it, that square. You'll also see it go like this as it goes around. That means the bearing's not centered in that hub correctly. If we don't have these things correct, we actually will have different contact points of the blades as they spin around. So when you guys shim these, shim your blades, test your contact point, rotate that thing 190 degrees, 180 degrees, check it in 3 or 4 spots as you spin those around. Make sure you have the same amount of contact as you spin those blades around when you install them. So here you'll see that. We'll watch that blade walk to and from, and you'll also see that wobble to it. We do not want much movement. What is it, Travis? 30 thousandths is the tolerance. So yesterday we had the question, what are some blade manufacturers that we recommend? We don't sell blades. A lot of our dealers are connected with some higher end blade manufacturers. Companies like Wear Parts or GBGI are two that are really good. Not much difference between the two of them. Honestly, my thought is GBGI is from Indiana, so guys east go to Indiana. Wear Parts is from South Dakota or Nebraska, one of the two. And most of the Western guys go that way. Again, there's not much difference between them, but that would be two companies that I would recommend for wear parts that are good. They make a good quality, and they have those tolerance specs. So, talk about parallel arm systems. We talked about making sure those row units are tight and solid as they go through here. Here you're going to see a standard parallel arm system on a John Deere planter, really loose. Most of you guys have been around John Deere, Kinsey parallel arms. You know that there are things that wear out quickly. But again, all this comes back to vibration in the shank. When we put a loose piece of equipment ground engaging and we start to pull across the field at 4 or 5 miles an hour, or maybe we got high speed and we're going 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, think about what that row unit's doing back there as it's in the ground. It's sitting back there chattering like this. It's not a visual. We can't see it physically doing that because it's minute, but it is sitting back there shaking. So it's shaking your meter. It's shaking the seed delivery coming down out of that meter. Make sure they're tight. You'll see the one on the right-hand side here. Nice and tight. It's solid. It's not shaking back and forth. This is a double bushing parallel arm kit from us. We replaced John Deere parallel arms, either long or short, tightens them up. They work really well. There's a lot of different aftermarket ones out there on the market. Make sure you're getting those parallel arms tight. I want 0 movement. Used to be old saying that 1/2 inch of movement was acceptable. If I've already got a 1/2 inch of movement, when that thing gets in the ground, it's going to shake a lot more. So parallel arms need to be tight and we have no movement. Closing wheel systems are very similar. We see that egg shape, right? Everybody's familiar with those. As we look at that, you'll see the video here of that moving. Again, a loose piece of equipment being pulled across the field attached to our shank is causing vibration. So making sure those are tight. There are some upgraded kits. You can weld some ball bearing bushing systems on there to tighten those up and not have to worry about that egg shaping and movement. But make sure those are good and solid and keeping those tight as well. One of the things we've looked at here in the last year for closing wheels is spring tension. How much tension do we get on a closing wheel tail in different spring notches? You'll see the lighter green is notch 1 of a spring of the tail. Put it in there, and we got a 12-row planter here. You can see on row 6 is the lowest. Row 2 is the highest pressure, and there was a 20-pound difference in notch 1 when we set all of them in notch 1 and put a scale underneath of them. And then we moved it to notch 3 for the darker green ones, and you can see that jumped up again. But now we have 25 pounds of difference, and shockingly to me, they're on 2 different rows. Not even the same rows as we look at that. So as we think about that, understand that there are wear items on those closing tails. When we've got that T-handle set back there, it's attached to a spring on the bottom, right? A lot of times our springs get worn out. I've seen where the tabs on that T-handle at the bottom where the spring hooks in, about wore through, if not wore through for some guys, right? So making sure that you're looking at those things and getting that maintenance up to snuff. You'll see here on row 3, we're missing some bars, aren't we? You can actually install the T-handle backwards and not have any spring pressure on your closing tail. Doesn't look much different, but if you install that T-handle backwards, it can put no pressure down on the ground. So this one, when we were doing this, didn't know it when we did it. We went and put the scale on it, and we kept getting no readings on row 3. Figured out that the T-handle was backwards. So make sure you're watching those things to get that stuff right. Meter calibration. We will always say this is where precision planting started, was the meter calibration systems. All of our dealers have those Meter Max Ultra test stand kits. They run anywhere from a finger meter all the way to the new vac meters. any brand that you want to, but making sure your meters are putting out 1 seed per flight or 1 seed per cell on your discs as they're going across the field is crucial. If we're putting out doubles, skips, triples, whatever it may be, we've got errors that we can't fix, right? We're costing ourselves money as we go through. So make sure you get your meters ran. We recommend finger meters are yearly, vacuum meters are every other year. Make sure you're getting them checked. So with that, we're going to move into putting ourselves in a good environment. What is the best environment that we can put those seeds in? And there's the 3 C's I want you guys to take home today. I want you to think cleaning when I go across the field. Am I cleaning that furrow correctly? Am I putting that seed in a nice, clean environment? We know that if we're going across the field, we know that residue causes us agronomic issues, right? It wicks moisture away. It has more wicking power than that seed. To be honest with you, seeds are lazy. If they don't have to take moisture in, they won't. So if there's a piece of material laying next to them that's willing to drink that moisture up, it's going to pull away from it. We also know that insulating the soil, residue insulates the soil. Anybody ever ran into any issues with their 260, 270 bushel corn residue and a mat of residue out there? You bet, right? We're all running into these issues as we increase our corn yields. What do we do with it, and how do we make sure it's working for us, right? I actually my uncle, he's got a little 6-row 7200, but he plants into cover crops, no-till. So he had some soybean stubble. He was planting his corn into this. And I went out and we just took a temperature gun, and I scanned the top of the residue. It was 56 degrees a day. The residue was 55 degrees, the top of it. Sunlight was shining on it. It was about mid-morning. I simply moved what little bit of residue there was to the side, didn't move any dirt, scanned that same spot again. It's 15 degrees colder under that mat of residue by moving maybe an inch of residue off the top. So understand the insulating value of that residue. We want to make sure we're creating nice strips like this with our planters as we go across the field. Row cleaners are crucial to emergence, guys. That's what I'm talking about when we talk about cleaning, right? Cleaning a path for that planter row unit. Second C is I want to create that furrow. I want to make sure I create a good trench where the seed goes to the bottom. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth of what we look at for those. And the third one is close. I want to make sure that I'm closing that trench out, because the ultimate planter pass, guys, is when it looks like we were never there. That's the ultimate planter pass. My closing wheel system does its job. Should know that that planter was never there. I should have no blocking, no sidewalls. I should have no issues for those root systems to go out and find all the nutrients and the moisture. So as we dig into that, really these 3 C's come back to emergence. Getting that crop up at the same time all together. We've done a number of studies, and we continue to do them over at our PTI farm over in Central Illinois. You guys get a chance this summer, I invite you guys over to the PTI farm. It's a 400-acre farm in Pontiac, Illinois, that we do agronomic studies. And most of the stuff has nothing to do with precision planting. Fertility studies, strip cropping, corn emergence. What are some different treatments that we can get better corn emergence and stuff? So I invite you guys to come over. We call it the farmer's playground, to be honest. You guys get to drive tractors. You guys get to go on agronomy tours. It's a fun day. So with that, one of the studies we've done, did I break it? One of the studies we've done is our multi-year corn emergence flag test. So this is to see what it costs us to not get those plants up at the same time. So we used to go back and we'd say, hey, you know what? We used to like to get everything up within 1 week. And then as the years have went by, it was, hey, 48 hours. We want everything to be up in 48 hours. And then it went to 36 and then 24. And now I'm sitting here today telling you, I want it less than 6 hours. I want everything up at the same time. That's a hard job, very hard job. But we have studies where if there's a plant that comes up 1 hour later than its neighbor, there's a yield loss. It is minute, but there's yield loss for 1 hour of difference. So it's crucial to get them up at the same time. So as we look at this, We go out and we find that first spike in our plot. We give it 12 hours from the first spike we see come up. So that's our 0%. That's our baseline. We go back 12 hours later and we count any additional ones that come up. On average, they lose 8% of ear weight in 12 hours. Might be able to handle that. Might not be the end of the world. But 36 hours, I'm now at 31% ear weight loss. 48 hours, I'm at 70% ear loss. We get the impact of having these things come up at the same time, right? We're not profitable if we get past 36 hours on that ear. So floating row cleaners are crucial, guys. As we look at that row cleaning system, we came out originally with fixed row cleaners. The industry did. Fixed row cleaners were an option to help us start to manage those things. But if I've got any terrain at all, I'm either gouging or I'm not cleaning, right? Any movement in that soil. So as I looked at those, I needed to make sure I moved to floating row cleaner systems. Then we moved to managing those floating row cleaner systems with an air cylinder to manage that weight distribution, because if I go from a no-till field to a tillage field, I've got a set weight on that row cleaner. I needed a little extra, I needed a little less depending on which way I was going. And then we also had different wheels themselves. So depending on the conditions you guys are getting, we got finger wheels, we've got the disc style wheels or shark tooth style wheels to help us manage those different conditions that we're in, those different scenarios that we go through. So as we look at that, here are those ears associated with that. We can see those. What are the two things I need for germination? To get everything to germinate at the same time is going to help me get everything emerged. I need heat and moisture, right? So cleaning, the crucial part of cleaning is the heat element of that, right? Getting that heat, that sunlight into that soil to heat it up around that seed. So just like any good company, we do 15, 20 years of research into into cleaning systems and how do we help you guys. We ended up developing our own because we were finding these flaws, we weren't seeing them get fixed, and we couldn't figure out how to make them better for you guys. So one of the big downfalls with row cleaners is they're mounted to the front of the shank. What's the common theme for me today? Keep vibration out of the shank, right? So as those shanks are sitting there shaking and moving, hitting every berm, every clod of root ball from last year, they're sending that shock into the shank and shaking it. So we moved those row cleaners from the shank up to the bar and made them bar mounted. We made them rear trailing so they take up the same real estate. But some of the cool parts about it is we ended up adding a tine engagement depth lever. So right here on the front of that nose, I've got a T-handle, just like I would be able to change the depth. When I have that internal gauge wheel in there for it to ride on, I'm able to adjust how much tines are working for me. So if I think about, I'm just planting in a no-till soybean stubble, do I need a lot of tine length? Probably not, right? If I use the total tine length, I'm probably going to move some soil. So now I can lower that down, just use a little bit of tines to move that soil or move that residue and not move soil. Get into some heavy no-till or cover crops or maybe some heavy corn residue, and I need some more tine length to help me move that away. I can adjust that T-handle to where that wheel goes up, and I've got the full tine engagement into the ground to help me clean that system. So we're really excited about these. We've seen some great results from them, but we're changing the way we're thinking about these things to help improve that emergence factor for you guys. As we talk about creating the furrow, we talk about making sure that that furrow is wide. We talk about furrow integrity is really one of the terms we like to use. A furrow that is wide, it's at the depth it's supposed to be, it's holding up as we put the seed in the bottom of that trench as we go through. So what are some things that cause us issues with that? One is furrow width. Now, we look at this tool here, and a lot of people call it a seed tube guard. And it's doing that, but actually I think that's a false name in my opinion. I think this needs to be the furrow width or the furrow integrity guard because it's setting the width of our furrow. As I think about my disc openers going in the ground, if I've got a worn out seed tube guard, my disc openers now have pressure on the outside of them. They narrow up and I've got a narrow seed trench. And I end up with what's on the left side there of a seed that gets hung up on there and I have air pockets around it. So I need to make sure that those seed tube guards are wide and helping protect my furrow width. When we look at those seed tube guards, they are worn out at 3/4 of an inch. So if you guys can fit a 5/8 wrench on them, they're worn out. They are 15th, 16th, or 7/8 brand new. There's not a lot of wear life on them. So make sure you're watching that. We have seen those things down very, very narrow on guys' planters. I've seen guys replace disc openers and not replace those. These are items that wear together. Make sure you're aware of that they wear together, and when you replace disc openers, I would just go ahead and replace seed tube guards. One of the cool tools we got, actually we were able to see it at an Iowa State thing, but this is a closing wheel lockup tool. This helps you evaluate your furrow. One of the hard things we've always had is we take a planter pass, we go back and we dig and we dig and dig and try to find seed and find our spacing. And if you're like me, I flick the seed out of the trench about 90% of the time or move it, and then I never know where it was. This tool allows us to lock that closing wheel tail up, plant for 50 feet, and be able to see that trench open. Did I hold the sidewall? Did I create a good furrow? Is my seed at the bottom? Am I planting into moisture? I can evaluate all that without having to dig. Really neat tool. So contact your local dealer. I know Cornelius is going to get all their reps some of these, so when they come around and help you guys set planters and make sure things are good, they'll be able to help you guys lock one of them up. So emergence, as we think about getting that crop up out of the ground all at the same time, we talk about moisture, right? Planting depth, planting into that moisture line. And we can look at both these lines and say the seed was planted at the right depth. Both sets of these seeds were planted at that good 2-inch depth or wherever that moisture line was in this field. But we've got different emergence levels because moisture was different in both areas of those fields. It was the same field. The moisture level in one soil was lower than it was in the other. And we've never been able to see that, right? We had to always pull in, we plant a little bit, we dig, we find that moisture line, and we assume it's the same throughout the whole field, right? How many of you guys have one soil type in all your fields? We don't, right? Nobody's raising their hands. This is north central Iowa is as close as we get to one soil type in a field, right? So if we don't have that, how do we know? This goes back to having that visibility. So one of the tools we built that I really think is pretty innovative, and there's nothing like it out on the market, is what we call that smart firmer. It is a seed, it replaces your seed firmers, your ketons, but it allows us to get some readings, one of them being furrow moisture as you go across the farm. And it tells us in the cab if we're planting into proper moisture. Do we need to make an adjustment as we go across the field to get this into moisture and to make sure that it is properly going to germinate the same time as everything else? This is a tool that, in my opinion, is invaluable as we plant today to make sure every seed gets up out of the ground at the same time. Not only does it give us moisture, it gives us furrow integrity, or furrow, why am I blanking on it now? And basically it's looking at cloddiness of the soil, so it gives us that. It gives us clean furrow, looking at residue. It gives us soil temperature. It also gives us organic matter and CEC maps as you guys go across your farms. So it helps you remap some stuff, create some new zones as we look at that. But one of the ones that I really like is that furrow moisture value. It gives us something to ensure that we know we're in the moisture line. So the last step in this is closing, removing that furrow. As we look at this, is this furrow closed properly? Not, right? Well, one, I can see the wet furrow still open there in the center, correct? But what happens when we start digging into it? Look at the air gaps down in there. We didn't close this properly. We've got air gaps. We're going to increase disease pressure, seedling blight. We're going to see air pockets in there are going to dry out that soil and cause it to not allow it to germinate because it's going to keep it dry around that seed. So a number of issues. So as we think about closing, we look at it as soil density management. We want to make sure that that seed has seed to soil contact and that we have good aggregate to that soil. So it's soil density management as we look at it. We want to create a sidewall with those gauge wheels. We want to firm the seed into the soil, but we want to close from the bottom to the top. And that's where a lot of times we miss on our closing wheel systems, is that closing from the bottom to the top. So just like our row cleaning systems, we've done research and helped you guys kind of manage and select the right row closing systems over the years and really gone through and said, okay, how do we make sure we do this? We couldn't do it, the existing equipment out there today, so we designed what we call furrow force. It's a two-stage closing wheel system with the front wheels being towed in and cambered, and it lifts that soil profile as it goes through and drops it and lets it fracture. And then those back wheels come along and set that soil density. The drier it is, the more weight we can put on those rear wheels to pack that down, get that capillary action of moisture back up to the seed. The wetter it is, the lighter we run with those back wheels to make sure that we're not creating any compaction layers for that seedling to come up through as it's growing. So making sure that we have the right systems on there is crucial to get that system closed out. We've done a number of closing wheel studies on there. This is all compared to the furrow force system in manual. The furrow force system can be ran in manual or automated. Here you can see these different ones we used. This is the average across all tillage types. So we do a no-till situation, we do a vertical till situation, we do conventional tillage, and we do strip till, are the 4 different tillage systems that we do on the farm. This is all of the results averaged together across all the different tillage systems. So you can see those different systems. A lot of probably what you guys have out today. We've got dual rubber systems, we've got short spikes, we've got long spikes, we've got cast systems in this study. Kind of covers all of the different areas. But you can see where that furrow force system being cambered and towed in, lifting that soil, where none of the rest of these are doing that. We're not getting that lifting action of that soil profile to let it lift and drop and fracture. And that's where that stands apart. So you can see it not only on the yield side, but even when we add the cost of the equipment in, what the benefit of that is. We're still an ROI, still a positive ROI above and beyond all the other ones. So not only when you guys select equipment to help improve an operation, do you need to see that it gains yield, but you'll also need to look at it and say, is it helping me on the financial side? Yeah, they score okay in conventional tillage. That's a very political way to answer that, but they score okay. And this is all available. If you guys want this, get a hold of your local precision dealer. They can get you the PTI results book. You guys can look through all of it. I think there's like 160 trials that we publish, and it has all these different ones in there. So you guys can get with a precision dealer and have them send you a copy of a PDF of that. So, yes, dual rubbers struggle a lot. So with that, the last thing I wanted to do is kind of talk about the future, what the technology is. Everybody kind of looks to precision as what we're bringing, we're innovating in the industry. What are we doing? What's coming next, right? So one of the things we've introduced here is what we call our Gen 3 display. It was a 10-inch display. It's the one on your left-hand side there. And that's been out for 2 or 3 years now. And the number one thing we keep hearing from guys as we add more and more stuff to our planters and more control items, I don't have enough real estate, but I don't want to run multiple displays. We fixed that for you. We just made one display bigger. Okay, so now we have a 16-inch display. It actually has over double the screen square inches on it, and it's the same functionality. It goes right on there. You're able to customize that display, move all the metrics around to where you want it. One cool thing I always like to say is when Dad gets in the planter, he likes to look at certain things, and the son gets in the planter and he likes to look at them. You can make your own screens, and all you got to do is one touch of the button, switch from one to the other, and be able to see what you want to see versus what Dad wants to see, right? Some guys say they also like to simplify it for Grandpa, right? Take a lot of the button pushes away for Grandpa, right? So there's a lot of options with this display. We're excited to get more inches out there for you. But as we think about adding like things like smart firmers, like I talked about, think about all that data that you could have and be visualizing and see. And if I don't have enough room on my display, I have to deviate from the screen. How often do you guys like clicking buttons as you're going across every pass of the field to see other things? We don't, right? We want to have it all visible to us as we go across the field. The next thing we introduced is our new data analysis and data platform called Panorama. So this is our new platform that allows us to view, analyze, summarize, and share data back and forth. So this is going to allow you guys to manage your data. It connects with those Gen 3s, those .2020 files. A .2020 file, that Gen 3 is connected to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and it sends that up to the cloud. So now you have that data as soon as it can, right on your phone or on the web to view, analyze, or share. One of the cool things we like is that we started to working on this, and we've had a lot of people come forward and say, hey, we want to make sure we're able to be compatible with your platform. One of those is FieldView. The other one is John Deere Operations Center. So now with Panorama and Gen 3 files, you guys can send those back and forth and share those files freely back and forth and get those things, that data where you want it. The third thing we talked about at Winter Conference this year is our Cornerstone planning system. It's a new row unit design, all integrated precision planning stuff designed by us. We get the ability to factory flexible build that. So what you can do is customize how you want that built. It can be all put together in the factory, comes to you, you bolt the U-bolts on, you plug the wiring in, and you're done. It's all installed for you, ready to go. But we really optimized the design. We took a lot of the design features from other row units, things that guys liked, and made really one nice row unit out of it. It's a big, solid cast row unit that gives us that rigidity and that weight that we need back there to get into the different conditions. But also with that big, wide row unit, one thing that they designed into it was, do you see any wires or hoses on the outside of this? No. It's all integrated into the shank. We can run all of our wiring and our hoses and everything inside that shank, keep it nice and clean. We don't have to worry about stocks grabbing it as we go through fields and stuff like that. We're also do rear trailing gauge wheels. So one of the things we look at, again, vibrations in the shank, gauge wheels that run forward, hitting every berm, every dirt clod, every root ball, they cause that vibration back into the shank. Allows us to have that rear trailing and control that ride a lot better. As well as adjustments, being able to make sure that we're getting that planter dialed in mechanically, as well as infield ease of use, making sure that's up to date. As the double bushing parallel arm kits, it's got a closing wheel alignment system on it, where it allows us to make sure we can change the angle of that closing wheel to make sure it's tracking through behind that row unit as we close. So we're really excited about this as we move into the next few years here of supplying you guys with the proper row unit that's going to hold up and be able to be managed easily for you going forward. And the other big area of precision planning is going into is sprayer technology. And the sprayer technology is where we're looking at, we always step back and say, okay, we're really help growers in areas where their inputs are the highest. Seeding and fertility. We've really covered those areas here the last 5-10 years for you guys and helping you improve and visibility and management of those systems. So we stepped back and said, what's the next area you guys need help with? And sprayers was an overwhelming. Your chemical inputs on your farm is one of the next highest inputs that you guys have on your operation. And let's be honest, has the technology changed? It hasn't, right? Speed and pressure, right? We always make the joke, but that's really what it is. It's speed and pressure. So how did we step back? We said, hey, we think we can modernize some of this. Let's go look at it. And boy, we dug deep and we went deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think we finally found the bottom of this, but I think we're starting to come back out and say, okay, we've got some solutions for you guys. Because what's shocking is we put a heart monitor on a sprayer operator. Got 120-foot booms traveling at 10 miles an hour across the wide open field. His heart rate is higher in the field spraying than it was driving a big machine not made to go down the road. So you can see right here, this is in a field, then he pulls out on the road and goes down the road. His heart rate slows down. The green is a lower heart rate. He pulls back in this field and his heart rate immediately goes back up. Spraying is a nerve-wracking operation, right? More nervous in the field spraying than we are when we're when we're driving that big machine down the road, because we want to make sure we do it right. One, the guy running the combine, is going to find everything you ran over, right? So we're a little nervous, especially in post pass. But we want to make sure that we're doing these things right. We're not wasting chemical. We're not going to have any errors as we go across the field. So as we went through these things, we come up with kind of a suite, and we're still building on those as we go. One is a boom reclaim system or boom recirculation system. But basically what it is we replumb the ends of each wet boom. We have a return line back to the tank and 2 ball valves. Hit a switch in the cab, and now I can purge everything out of there and send it all back to the tank. I no longer have those dead areas in the end of my wet booms where chemical can settle out in, and I can have spraying issues going forward. But also I know when I clean out, I'm truly cleaning that whole boom out. I can also prime the boom with this system. So I can sit there and hit the button and know that I have product in at every nozzle. What have you guys done in the past? Turn the spray on, right? Let 30, 40 gallons spray out on the ground, and hopefully, eventually, right, all that product gets to every nozzle before we even start. So why waste that product? Why spray it on the ground when we can spray it on the crop, right? So allowing this ease of use, the simplicity of stuff for you guys with these boom recirculation systems is cool. Better spray performance. We have our own PWM nozzle body system. So at this point now, we take over that sprayer. We put the 2020 in the cab, and we control pump, we control rate, control the pressure, we control that nozzle and everything with that as we go across the field. So we'll have about 200 of those spray nozzle systems out here called Symphony in the fields this year. We're working on camera systems to do that target spraying or that spot spraying as we look at that, and only spray where we need to spray or bump up the rate. But not only with those cameras, we're also going to have scouting included in that. These things are going to be able to map all your weed pressure, differentiate between grass weeds and broadleaf weeds, and be able to show you where those pressures are at in your field so you can make prescription spraying recs in the future. Not only are we doing that with the cameras, we're also going to do post-emerge guidance for you guys. So as you guys are going down the fields, if it sees that visual line of crop, it'll steer that sprayer off of that line and keep it off the crop as we're spraying in different kind of contours and straight passes across the field. And then again, pairing that system all back with our panorama data system, making sure that we're actually going through and giving you guys that right data to make the management decisions moving forward. So we're excited about this suite of stuff as we go forward. If the sprayer stuff interests you, again, make sure you're connecting with your local dealers on that to get those things or get on their list. Again, we'll have about 200 of them running out here this spring. So if something you want to see, most local dealers have sold them, and you can get on a sprayer and maybe see something close and see how those are working. And the last thing that we're working on, I promise this is my last slide. I think I did a lot better today on my timing. So yesterday I made us like really late because I was talking too much. But my last one is the last thing precision planting is going into is a new era in soil fertility.